I am a male and was 18 at the time. I am 6 foot 2 inches tall, weigh 195 pounds. I am active and work out every day. I smoke weed a lot, usually daily. Been smoking weed for about 3 years. I wasn't on any medications. My intention was because I wanted to trip for the experience. I had a very open headspace and was ready to embrace what was thrown at me. This true story is about my first ever time taking any kind of psychedelics and how utterly naive I was to take the amount I did. Let me set the scene. I am 18 and my senior year of high school has just ended 15 days ago, so all my friends are finally off school. My friend David, who is also my age, is from another city, but we have been homies for 8+ years, so we stay in touch a lot. Me and him had been talking about doing shrooms for the first time for months at this point, and we finally saw our opportunity arise. Our friend Tyler happens to be growing shrooms along with a bunch of other shit like ant farms and a shit ton of plants. Tyler hits me up and tells me that he will give me 10 grams of a fresh batch of Golden Teacher shrooms for $60. Me being an American and smelling a good deal, I couldn't resist. So I called David and we planned for 2 days later, on a Wednesday, for him to come to my house, get the shrooms, and then trip at mine. So on that Wednesday, we drive to get our shrooms. Me and David split the $60 50-50. Now at this point, you'll be thinking, dang, y'all must be getting scammed if you only paid $60 for 10 grams. Well, we thought the exact same, but we said, fuck it, why not? Me and David have each known Tyler for over 10 years and hoped he was just giving us a good deal, and a good deal he gave us. When we got back to my house, I called my girlfriend Cynthia, who had self-appointed herself as me and David's trip sitter. Me and my girl are very close, and I agreed to have her watch over us in case we did some dumb shit. David was cool with it too. Me and David planned to take the shrooms at 6 p.m. so we could watch the sunset as we peaked. For some background, we had chosen my backyard, which is about an acre in size and surrounded by thick trees. There's a natural spring at the end of a hill at the back of the property and plenty of open lawn. We decided to put 2 chairs under an old swing set where these big trees loom over as our spot. My parents and sister would be home for this, so we made sure we were outside away from people. Also, David has taken shrooms once before this, but for me this was my first time. We planned to split the 10 grams 50-50 and each take 5 grams. We thought that we could handle them, and we didn't want them to be duds, so in case they were, we took a shit ton. Horrible reasoning, and looking back makes me laugh at how arrogant we were. As 6 rolls around, I start to get that excited pit in my stomach I get when I am about to do something awesome, crazy, or burst with adrenaline. Me and David skip dinner, which is pizza that my mom had ordered. David opens the bag and goes, "Dude, holy shit, look at this one." And he pulls out a massive cluster of 4 mushrooms. I opted to take this cluster called the Mother, which David had named it. I then added 1 more shroom to my dose. David takes the same as me from the bag, but not as a cluster. We say bottoms up and both eat the dried mushrooms. To my surprise, I didn't mind the taste even though it was very hard to chew. I managed to get them down with the help of some water. 10 minutes in, my girlfriend Cynthia arrives at my house. She is surprised to see we had already taken them. Approximately 10 minutes after she arrived and 20 minutes into me and David's trip, we already start to feel the come up. We quickly decide that it's time to go outside, so we emerge from my house onto my back deck. I am instantly met with the warm summer air and the burning sun raining down onto my body. I feel at peace. 40 minutes in, me, David, and Cynthia are all outside in our chairs by the swing set. when David starts to say he feels it hard. Being in the chair felt like being strapped into a rocket ship, so I mentally buckle in. Usually the onset of shrooms is said cause nausea and some discomfort, but I was fine. I look up and notice the sky has these pentagon-shaped fragments all over it, almost like fragments to a dome, as if the sky was fake. I stared at this for a while until David starts to point stuff out to me. He points out the trees breathing and the ground breathing and how I am breathing and how he's breathing, and soon I realize that everything is breathing and waving at me. I start to feel myself become engulfed into this new world I had just been born into. I look at my girlfriend, and me and David still can't explain this. We can see through her skin, as if her skin was just a film over her muscles and veins. Yes, that's what skin kind of is, but it was transparent to us. I become invested in this, and I show David. David is blown away because he sees the same thing too. This must have creeped Cynthia out because she left us alone for a while after that. 1 hour in. At this point, the visuals are very, very strong. I just start staring at random things, mouth gaped open going, wow, holy shit, bro, this is crazy, etc. Everything had meaning to it. Everything felt alive. I noticed the freshly cut grass I had mowed over one day earlier. The grass blades start to grow and multiply and soon turn into what I can only describe as this green coral. The clover flowers that litter the yard were like all the little fish in the coral reefs and would pop in and out of the grass coral. The coral soon vanished, and I was left with a sea of billions of glowing and sparkling clover flowers. The urge to piss soon followed this. Getting up to go pee felt like I was carrying bricks on my back. My feet felt so light, but the rest of my body felt heavy and weird. I am a huge music head and listen to it all the time. I had almost 100,000 minutes listened this year, and I listen to all genres. After the piss and thinking that some music will help set the tone, I turn on some music. Me and David quickly agree that it is too much. The music with the sounds of birds in my yard, my dog in the neighborhood, was all too much in the moment. I start to think of what David said earlier about my cluster I took. That's the mother, bro. You become a hive mind or something. I pondered on the word hive mind for a while and thought that maybe that's what I was. I'm the hive mind. This excited my mind quickly. Nothing stayed in my head long enough for me to grasp it. It felt like I was being hit with all of the world's secrets all at once. I had to let go of reality. 1 hour, 30 minutes in. This is when the trip started to really blow my mind into oblivion. At this point, I had accepted that life is just like this now. Patterns and waves and this coral lawn, no time, no body, just me and David chillin' in my backyard. Me and David start to talk, or, well, at least try to talk. Every time I try to talk to David, I start talking normally, and then I just can't get all my words out and end up saying, you know what I mean? And then David responding with, yeah, bro, absolutely, and vice versa. It felt like my tongue was literally tied. David was feeling the same way. David then randomly goes, so what happens when we die? David is a bit autistic and blurts stuff sometimes, and doesn't know what the vibes are in some situations. Me somehow being able to remember that quickly de-escalated where David was going. I explained where I was at, and he respected it. In this moment in conversation, me and David start to communicate without speaking. We just look at each other, and I can only describe it as feeling each other's emotions. Nothing in my entire life has made me feel so noble and wise as I did in that moment. In this moment in conversation, me and David start to communicate without speaking. We just look at each other, and I can only describe it as feeling each other's emotions. Nothing in my entire life has made me feel so noble and wise as I did in that moment. I felt as if me and David were two wise wizards in nature on a podcast talking about life, but we weren't even saying anything 80% of the time. 2 hours in, I checked my phone for our stopwatch we had set, and it says exactly 2 hours. Me and David look at each other and laugh because what are the odds of that? It felt very meaningful in the moment. I throw my phone down in disgust as if to reject all electronics. That was a common theme throughout this whole trip. My phone felt so foreign and wrong. I am really off the walls tripping after this. David's eyes get big and small and look like an anime character would in real life. I look over at my house and it is a mushroom. In reality, my house does resemble the build of a shroom from the angle I was at. I stare for a while at my now rounded side mushroom house, which started to bounce up and down like a bouncy castle in a kid's cartoon. This becomes too much to look at, so I close my eyes and see a field of multicolored evergreen trees and mushrooms towering high into the sky. I immediately open my eyes. I come to a bit and realize that it is much lighter outside than I thought it was. When I was staring at my house and saw those trees, it was very dark. It seemed like 10 o'clock when in reality it was about 8. This made me feel anxious and the vibe started to shift for me. After this, I start to feel my body again and think, was that the peak? No way that was the peak. And then, boom! I am shot into outer space again. The trip starts to become very intense. I start to take deep breaths to slow my heart rate down, but nothing is working. I call Cynthia, who had been inside this whole time, to come sit with me to make sure I am okay. Cynthia sits down onto my lap and talks to me and David, who at this time was experiencing crazy fractals but was very coherent. I lay my head against Cynthia's back and I see skulls, and it feels like I am infinitely falling into their mouths. I am calm, then a minute later it starts up again, and I am whipped right back into it. This time I start sweating and I feel nauseous. I make us all go inside to where it is cool. Me and David had been out there for 2 to 3 hours straight. Reality didn't feel real in our wizard podcast. When we get inside, I try to sit on my bed but immediately end up laying down on it. I call for Cynthia to sit by me, and then my eyes rolled back into my head. Peak. I am able to remember most of this peak, but I was pretty much unconscious. I am thrown into this black hole, deep and infinite. Streaks of dark but vibrant iridescent colors line the edges of this pit. Sirens, wails, and humming fill my ears, and I start to dissolve. I feel as if I am nothing, and just want this to end so I can get back to wherever I came from. Yellow and red caution signs, like the ones used for nuclear waste, streak my vision. I open my eyes for a split second and see my guitars all lined up in my room, and then instantly I get pulled back into the hole. This time in the hole, I see my guitar's necks rise up like pillars, then fall infinitely over and over. That vision dissolved into the pit, where this time the pit was more colorful, but still black and iridescent. Mushrooms and creatures lined the walls of the pit. Mushed faces melted into the walls of the pit. I start to lose memory of the rest of the pit here. All I remember is that all of the sudden, the pit started to dissolve and open up, and white light came rushing through, and I reached out for it. And just like that, I was back in my room. Post-peak. After the peak, I am brought back to reality somehow. All of the bad was gone, and I felt like I had just been born, gone through life, died, then was born again. Cynthia told me I was pretty much out for 5 minutes. She let me be though because I was breathing, somewhat responsive, and David told her I would be okay. It felt like I was in the pit forever. Time had no meaning there. Nothing had meaning there. I stand up to see a massive sweat outline from where I was lying. David's peak was over by the time I came to. I sit back down because I still feel nauseous. The thing with shrooms is that, for me at least, they come in waves. So after the peak, I was at the bottom of a wave. But as soon as the wave comes back around, I feel it again. That happened for the hour or so following. Just this up and down feeling. To be honest, I was just sick of it and ready for the trip to be over. Cynthia put on Hotel Transylvania for me and David to watch. It calmed me down a lot, and I was chilling for the rest of the night. Whenever I'd go to the bathroom, I kept touching my hair, feeling the infinite strands and looking at myself in the mirror, bewildered by what I was. Reality still seemed so distant. Cynthia left us, and embracing her as she left just felt so right. Me and David took a walk and smoked some weed 4 hours after we peaked. It felt like the best way to end the night. We recounted what had just happened to us and felt content with the world. Post, I came out of this trip with a greater appreciation for nature. I've always loved nature, but I felt as if I'd genuinely fallen in love with it. I also came out with a much smaller ego. Learned to not let my ego take hold and think I can just do something without any past knowledge. 5 grams is way too much, especially for someone's first time. I somehow managed to have a good trip, which still puzzles me to this day. I have taken shrooms several times after this, and this is still the most profound and mind-blowing experience I have ever had. If you want more stories like this, you know where to find them. This was Third Eye Chronicles, and as always, thank you for watching.